Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the United States Congress. So the United States Congress is separated into two different chambers, the first being the House of Representatives and the second being the Senate. The House of Representatives is comprised of 435 fully fledged elected members of the House, while the Senate is comprised of 50 elected members.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Each representative in the House is elected to serve a 2-year term, while each senator is elected to serve a 6-year term. And there's also a bit of a difference in how a representative was elected versus how a senator was elected. What would happen is the representatives were elected directly through the popular vote by the people of their constituencies, while the senators were chosen by the state legislatures and then were sent to the Capitol to represent the actual state itself, while the representatives were sent there to represent the people of the state. So there are a couple key differences between how the House functions and how the Senate functions. There are actually more, but there's a couple that we're going to cover today. One of them is the House of Representatives has the most control over the purse strings. Constitutionally speaking, Congress controls the purse strings itself. This means that any money the federal government wants to spend, it has to be appropriated and approved by Congress. Well, the House has the upper hand with that because according to the Constitution, all spending, revenue bills, anything like that, they have to originate in the House. The reason behind this is the House is deemed to be closer to the people than the Senate is. And that has a lot to do with the fact that the House serves a 2-year term versus the Senate serving a 6-year term, meaning that every 2 years, a representative in the House has to go back out to their people and they have to make the case why they need to be reelected every 2 years versus every 6, where they have a lot more, a senator will have a lot more leeway to make choices that their constituents may not agree with, all that kind of stuff. It's just easier to hold a representative accountable for their actions than it is to hold a senator accountable for their actions because of the sheer length of the senator's term versus the length of a representative's term. Another key difference we have with the House of Representatives is it has the sole power of impeachment. Now, a lot of people get this mixed up and they tend to, when they talk about impeachment, they tend to mean impeachment and conviction in one. That is not the case. All an impeachment is bringing charges. It's basically the equivalent to a grand jury deciding that there's enough evidence to bring charges against a defendant in a criminal case. That's all it is. The actual conviction is left up to the Senate. So that's actually one of the Senate's unique powers right there, is the Senate has the sole power to convict a sitting federal official. This means that they are actually convicted. So first the House has to impeach them, bring the charges, they transmit the articles of impeachment to the Senate then has to hold a trial, and it can be a very long, drawn-out process, as I'm sure some of us have seen during Trump's 2 impeachment trials. And the Senate then comes to a decision on whether or not they're going to convict or if they are not going to convict the official. To convict the official, it has to be decided on a 2/3 majority vote in the Senate. Anything lower than that threshold, the federal officer is not convicted and they are not removed from office. However, if that very high bar is met, the federal official does not actually go to jail or prison or anything like that. All that means is they are then removed from power and they are barred from holding any position of honor in the United States, basically meaning they are no longer allowed to run for elected office. They can't hold these cabinet level positions, anything like that. They are barred from any of that stuff. Another couple of very important powers that the Senate has is, one, they have the sole power to confirm or not to confirm judicial nominees. While the president has the sole power to nominate an individual for a position on the court, such as the federal court, a federal court of appeals, or the U.S. Supreme Court, they all have to be confirmed through the Senate first before they can actually take that position. If the Senate decides not to confirm them, too bad, they don't get the job. There have been a lot of changes in regards to how the Senate confirms judicial nominees over the last couple hundred years. It used to be something like a 2/3 to 3/5. Now it's back down to a simple majority, which in reality does mean that a 50-50 split in the Senate can decide whether or not someone gets to sit on the Supreme Court, because then you would have the vice president come in and they would cast the tie-breaking vote, which, fun fact, that's the only time that the vice president can cast a vote in the Senate, even though they are considered to be the president of the Senate, is if there is a tie and there is a vote needed to be cast to break the tie, which of course the vice president would side with the president in this case. Another unique power that the Senate has that the House does not have is the power to ratify or not ratify treaties. There's been a lot in the news over the last couple of years about the Paris Climate Accords. I'm going to go ahead and use this as an example. The Paris Climate Accords are a good example of an executive agreement. So what that is it's just an agreement between the executive branch and X number of nations that we will conduct ourselves in a certain manner. Now, it's important to note that because this is an executive agreement, it is not actually a legally binding agreement upon the United States because the Senate hasn't ratified it as a treaty. Now, if the Paris Climate Accords are ever brought to the Senate, and if the Senate were to ratify it as a treaty, which would take 2/3 majority vote, then the treaty would be considered ratified and it would be legally binding upon the United States.